Vince versus Atlantic City.
Hey everybody, I am Vince of Geekvolution, and welcome to Vince Versus. That's right. Today we're talking about Atlantic City. That's right. This is video number 2 and the honeymoon. Epic honeymoon. So this is video number 2, and see here, Atlantic City. So first, the first thing we did on our way to Atlantic City, so we didn't go to Atlantic City initially, we stopped at IKEA between New York City and Atlantic City, which I think is really funny that she really wanted to stop at IKEA. She loves IKEA, my wife that is. She loves IKEA. So she kind of wanted me to have the big reaction to go into IKEA and go, wow, this is really cool. And I didn't have that reaction. And that's not to say I didn't enjoy it. We had dinner, we had Swedish meatballs with lingonberry sauce, and we kind of looked around, we picked up something for breakfast for the week, and it was okay. I mean, IKEA's alright. I like IKEA. I just don't love IKEA, so maybe it was a little disappointing for her, but she got a bunch of stuff that she wanted, and so we had to find a way to ship it, but that comes later. Anyway, moving on. So then we went to Atlantic City, and we found this little place really close to the beach that was recommended to us by one of Atlanta's family members. It was pretty cheap. So we're in Atlantic City. We get there extremely late because we stopped at IKEA first. So we get to Atlantic City pretty late, and we just crash. We get up the next morning. We have our breakfast purchased at IKEA, which, by the by, if you guys have an IKEA near you, go into the food section at IKEA, and they have these blueberry cakes. They're great. They're like little tart cakes, and they're pretty flat, and they're delicious. They're delicious. So good. But so I recommend it. But again, let us move on. So we get up, we have breakfast, and then basically what Atlantic City turned into for us was kind of this chance to explore food, because in New York City, getting around is not exactly hard, but there's so much. It's such a sensory overload that you just kind of want to get whatever is available. So we found some places that were there. We didn't look for places to go to. We thought we wanted to try a pizza place. Here's a pizza place. We wanted to try a deli. Here's a deli. We wanted to try a hot dog. Here's a hot dog stand. Actually, the hot dog stand was more like, I am really hungry right now. And, ooh, a hot dog. So, and also you get the experience of the hot dog in Times Square. But anyway, so in Atlantic City, I wanted to try as much of the seafood there as I could. And Elena, she's such a good sport because she doesn't like seafood at all. So, which is not entirely true. She likes certain kinds of sushi, which is about as fishy as you can get. And, well, anyway. So there are varying types of sushi. Some that are don't even have meat in them, let alone fish. So we go to this place called the Back Bay Ale House, and I really enjoyed it, and my wife liked it more than she thought she would. She gets into it, and she starts. She kind of gives me one of these. This is pretty good. I said, I told you. So what we did was we ordered 2 meals, and we kind of set them side by side and ate off of both, because I ordered essentially fried clams, and she ordered crab cakes, and mini crab cakes, not just any kind of crab cakes, but mini crab cakes, which for me they could have just called them crab cakes. I guess there's a standard size. Who knew? And these ones are the small ones. But so the crab cakes were all right. They were pretty tasty, but the clams kind of surprised me, because here in Kansas, I mean, granted, our seafood that we get here is frozen, or it's caught in a lake somewhere. So we don't really get a lot of fresh seafood. Now we have lots of catfish places around here, because catfish is extremely available. The thing about catfish, though, is that you can have good catfish and bad catfish. So if you've ever tried catfish and thought, I don't like that, well, it might just be that they didn't prepare the fish well when it was still alive, because the catfish is a bottom feeder, So it ends up eating a lot of mud during its lifespan. I don't know why I'm sharing this. Anyway, it ends up eating a lot of mud during while it's feeding. And if you don't put the fish in a tank of clean water and let the fish process all of that mud, then catfish tastes extremely muddy. There you go, little nugget of truth. So anyway, there's good catfish and bad catfish, and as opposed to a fat kish, which I'm not sure what that is. So we try these clams, and clams that I've had in Kansas, invariably between places, seem to be really chewy and a little tough. Not as tough as, like, you know, gizzards or something, but they're not exactly tender. But in Atlantic City, in a place where they're locally caught clams, no less, in Atlantic City, where they're available, where they are fresh, they're very tender, and it was extremely good. And that's the thing about, generally when you find fried foods, they're not exactly the most intricate kinds of meals, but I think the raw materials used, I think the raw ingredients used really mean a lot to stuff like that. So the fried clams were delicious, fantastic. And I had this kind of alcoholic birch beer, which I forget the name of the brand, but it was made in Scotland, and it was terrific too. So I thought it was kind of fun. What do you call it? Ah! Anyway, it's going to bother me all night now. I need to go find out what that stuff's called. It's very good. So basically from there, we kind of thought, well, what's there to do in Atlantic City other than casinos? Because the big thing to do in Atlantic City is go to the casinos, because there's 11 of them. So yeah, that's quite a lot of casinos. And you know, we have casinos here in Kansas City, but I've never gone. It's never really interested me. But you know, you're in Atlantic City, you want to kind of take in the atmosphere and get a sense of the city itself. And part of the city's mystique is casinos. So we, the first day we kind of took it easy. We went to, or at least in the way of casinos. The first day we went to the Back Bay Ale House, which is just in spitting distance from a little booth that sells tickets to a boat tour of Atlantic City. So Atlantic City, by the by, kind of a culture shock. It's kind of a culture shock to go from Kansas City, where I've lived, which is big, but not a heck of a lot of people. Like there's places where there's lots of people, but it's not. I would never say it's congested. And I've been in rooms where a lot of people are, and whatever. I mean, it is what it is. But New York City had so many people that it was kind of a culture shock to go from Kansas to New York City, and then it's kind of a culture shock to go from New York City to Atlantic City. So Atlantic City, it's not as big as Kansas City. It's quite small actually. So it takes a little while to get around in Kansas City, but in Atlantic City you could probably drive from edge to edge in about 15-20 minutes, maybe. If traffic's light, you might be able to make it in 11 minutes. Who knows? Who knows? Let's not go crazy. So the possibilities are endless. If you're speeding. So the first day we went to the Back Bay Ale House, and then we went over and bought tickets to this boat tour. And there's the Atlantic City Aquarium just on the other side of the tickets just on the other side of the booth for the boat tickets. There's a lot of B words. Anyway, so we went to the aquarium, and it was fun. It wasn't like a giant aquarium, and a lot of the fish are fish that can be found just off the bay or shore or whatever they wanted to call it, and it was enjoyable. And that was the thing, is that it was relaxing. And when we walked in there, there's another thing that's really interesting to me about Atlantic City versus New York City, is how ridiculously expensive everything is in New York, and then how reasonable most everything is in Atlantic City. So Atlantic City had pricing that I don't kind of surprised me. Like even here in Kansas City, things can kind of be a little more expensive than, but not nearly as expensive as New York. Anyway, so if you're looking for a nice, relaxing place to go, for a few days just to get away. Find a little place on the beach in Atlantic City. It's not bad. So we go into this aquarium, and there's a person who is showing around animals, and this giant tortoise comes out, and she guides it around with a carrot and gives a little spiel about the tortoise. Before that, they had a bearded iguana that they showed to people. Before that, they had a tarantula, and before that, we weren't there. We just walked in during this lady's speech. So actually, the bearded iguana came first, and we didn't see that. We just saw it in its cage. But whatever. So they had aquatic life. They had one with a giant tortoise. They had one with a giant turtle, and the tortoise being the land creature, I believe, and the turtle being the sea creature. So it was really, I believe, I don't know, but it was a lot of fun to see all these different kinds of fish and kind of read a little bit about them. And they had three levels. They had 2 levels of an aquarium, and then they had an observation deck. So we went around so that you could just look out over the harbor and just kind of see the beauty of an East Coast beach community. It was really pretty. And they had, I'll say this, that on our way to the Back Bay Ale House, we saw these like interesting little splashes of architecture. So nothing gigantic except for the casinos. The casinos are huge, but nothing gigantic in the way of their fun stonework. But you could tell it was an older community, and they had some interesting stuff there. So we're in this aquarium, and they have like a little petting place where you can touch these. They have actually 2 or 3 places where you can go and you can touch the creatures, and that's what's interesting to me, that's even available. It never occurred to me to let people put their hand in water and touch these things. So you could feed the stingrays, you could feed the stingrays, you could touch these little, I forget what kind of sharks they were, but I guess they just decided that certain of these things are not dangerous, and it was, I don't know, it was fun. It was kind of interesting to go in there and touch some of the animals. But I kind of felt like a little kid. My wife and I were walking over there like, heck, we paid for it. Touch, 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 touch. So we were in the aquarium. But at some point, you know, I always kind of liked watching turtles and tortoises because I think they're kind of adorable. I think and I also think the hard shell's kind of fun because there's not a lot of creatures out there that have a distinct giant shell, and they kind of look like a little creature inside of a home. I think they're cute. So at some point I was up there looking at the animals, and while I was looking at some of these, they had some aquatic life and some land life, and I thought it was amusing that when I was walking around looking at the land life, there was a turtle that was minding its own business, just kind of bored looking, and then this other turtle comes and kind of scopes out the area, and if I may not be too garish, the 2 turtles start copulating, and as I'm looking at all these animals, I hear this woman over here next to me say, "Oh look, that turtle's climbing on the other turtle," and I said, "Climbing's a word for it. You could call it climbing if you wanted," and she said, "Oh." She walks away, and my wife had gone somewhere, I guess the restroom, and she came back, and I told her what the woman had said and what I told her, and my wife and I had a good laugh about it, and she said, "That's really funny." I said, "It's almost like it happened in slow motion." Moving on. So the top floor had some antique diving equipment, which I thought was really interesting. I kind of wanted them to have full suits and a bigger thing for the antique diving equipment. That would have been really cool, but they had some helmets, and then they had the observation deck, which I appreciate what they had. I just didn't realize how interested in that I would be. So from there, we leave, we go to the boat tour, and the boat tour has a bar on board. We got a couple of ginger ales. because we're adults, we got ginger ale, and so we got some ginger ale, and we sat on the place of the boat. Now I've always had a little bit of motion sickness issues. I don't know what it is. I think it's an inner ear imbalance type of thing. But so I didn't feel too swift. About 2/3 of the way through this trip, I was shot. I went, oh god, I'm done. And anyway, before that, we're on this boat and we get to see dolphins and we get a great tour of the city, and he essentially, I don't know, drives the boat? What do you say? he guides the boat, something, around the edge of the city, because there's a lot of coast in Atlantic City, and points out the different casinos, points out the boardwalk, tells us a little bit about the hurricane that unfortunately hit Atlantic City, and Hurricane Sandy, I believe. So tells us a little bit about how reconstruction for some of these things are going, the boardwalk, how they're pumping sand onto the beach. He points out a lot of this stuff, and it's really interesting. And also there's lots of dolphins around. Apparently these dolphins were feeding because they were it was a fresh rain or something like that, which brings a lot of food up to the top, and I'm not sure how that works, but I guess he knows more than I do, whatever. And so I start feeling ill, and the guy sticks his head out. He's like, "Hey, you all right?" I'm like, "I'm fine," but he says it's a milder ride down there, down on the bottom level. And I said, "You know what? Now that you say it, that makes all the sense in the world." We went down, and it was like the boat wasn't even hardly moving. Up top, you're getting knocked back and forth, you're sliding around. Down low, you're just kind of sitting there or standing there or whatever, however you want to do it. So, moving on. So later on that evening, we decided to take in a casino and see what one of the casinos is like. And I said to my wife, "Which casino do you want to go to?" And she studied, she was a classical languages major, so she has a little bit of experience in like Roman architecture and Roman design and things like that, and she likes that stuff. And what she said was, "I would like to go to Caesars because I think I'll like the decor." So we went to Caesars, and we went there. We thought, well, what are we going to do at Caesars? And we decided we were going to try a slot machine, not really get invested in gambling, but just try a slot machine, and have dinner at the buffet that was there. So we went to the buffet, which is not cheap, but we went to the buffet, and I was a little disappointed by the types of food they had on the buffet. They had a lot of, everything that was on the buffet was made well. It was good food, but it's the same stuff that you get here at a buffet. In my head, you might see something a little bit different at a high dollar place. You might see something a little bit different at a place that's in a different city. I don't know what I was expecting, but the buffet was the exact type of food that you would see here. They had some steaks, so generally if you pay a little bit more for a buffet here, you can get steak. But and what was funny to me was the beef. I had better brisket at my wedding than they had brisket on the Caesars buffet, which I thought was odd. But it was dry and a little flavorless. But anyway, the buffet was okay, and it's just the same stuff: mashed potatoes and gravy, corn, things of that kind. I'm like, I wasn't impressed. Anyway, it was good, but so we wasted $2 trying a slot machine at Caesars, or trying a couple slot machines. She and I sat next to each other and played, and I thought, so you basically pick the number of lines, you make a bet, and then your money goes away, or you get a little bit of money. Like, this isn't particularly exhilarating or fun for me. I don't know. So she and I wasted $1 each. Then then we went home. Or we went home. We went back to the rental and went to sleep. But the next day we get up and we go try. I think the next day we actually went to D.C. So that was our day trip to D.C. That's the next video that's coming. So then we have the next day, which was an interesting day. See here, we went to a place that we got up and had our IKEA breakfast. And then we kind of went around the city and looked for whatever we could find. we ultimately just kind of... Oh, wait, we went to the beach. That's what it was. We went to the beach that morning. So we got up, had our IKEA breakfast. Then we went to the beach. And now I'll share this story with you. A while back, I think I was a junior in high school or so, back when I was still heavy. And or this might have been just after high school, I forget. But my brother was in the military. And he was back on leave, and he said, I want to go to a convention. I want to go to Connecticut in Connecticut. Because, of course, Connecticut is in Connecticut. So it's a big anime, gaming, and webcomic convention. And I thought, wow, those things are interesting to shove together. But so really it was kind of a geek convention. And that's the place that I found my love for comic books, believe it or not. That's the place that I found the Fantastic Four, Mark Waid, Mike Wieringo? I don't know. Mark Waid's run on the Fantastic Four, and really fell in love with the Fantastic Four and, by extension, comic books in general. So, while we were there, it was my brother, my dad, and I. And my dad, he said, I would like to go to the ocean, guys. I'd like to go see the ocean before we leave, since we're here on the coast. And we both said, all right. So one day we left the convention a little early, and we took a trek out to what we thought was the ocean, and we're looking around. We're like, well, look at that. That's the ocean right there. That's really neat. And then, eventually the convention ends, and we go back to Kansas. And one of the guys that my dad was working with, we were telling him about our trip, and he said, wait, where were you guys? So we told him again, and he said, I'm sorry, but that's not the ocean. You guys just saw a little inlet. You guys... He said, but we couldn't see land on the other side. He said, well, no, because it's a big inlet. And we're like, well, great, I guess we didn't see the ocean that we thought we saw. So on this trip to Atlantic City on the honeymoon, not involving Connecticut or Connecticut, or actually my parents or my brother, they weren't there because it's the honeymoon. So my wife and I, we went to the beach, and while we were there, we set up some chairs, we brought a couple drinks, we sat there and we watched the ocean. It was nice. And we decided we were going to get in the ocean. So we went and we got in the ocean, and the waves were fun to play with, whatever. We had a good time. And at some point I walk over to these lifeguards and I say, hey guys, this is going to seem like a dumb question. I said, this is the ocean, right? Right here, this is the ocean. And I told him why I asked. And he said, yeah, I understand. And, it seems like maybe you didn't see the ocean when you thought you did. But he said, this is the Atlantic Ocean. When I asked him that question, he gave me this look. Yeah, this is the ocean, the Atlantic Ocean. And, it's called Atlantic City, so it makes sense that it juts out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. So whatever. Well, not the middle, obviously, but it juts out into a body of water. So, moving on. Now, so we leave the beach, and the beach was fun. The water was astonishingly cold. In fact, what the lifeguard said to me? Said, "Yep, this is the Atlantic Ocean. Is it everything you ever thought it would be?" And I said, "Yep, wet and wavy, kind of salty. It's exactly what I thought it would be." I don't know. I didn't have any expectation. It just seems like seeing the ocean ought to be something you do before you die. I don't know, especially for people who are landlocked. So just go out there. But so anyway, so we leave and we decide we want to go find lunch. So we get cleaned up. We go and we look up some Jersey pizza, and we go to this place in Atlantic City that is terrific. It is amazing. It's called Tony Baloney's, and the name I thought was kind of silly, but we saw a recommendation on it, or we saw a recommendation for it on Google. So Google told us to go to Tony Baloney's. It said you're going, or you're getting a punch in the face. So no, I didn't say that. It said this has a 4.5-star rating out of 5, and we said, oh, that sounds promising. So we decided to leave our big fish dinner for dinner, and for lunch we go and we have Tony Baloney's. And we go there, and it gets really rainy and nasty on our way there. So just as we leave the beach, which it was overcast at that point, just as we leave the beach, it gets all rainy and nasty and extremely foggy. Like you could see the fog coming in. And so I go into, or she and I go into Tony Baloney's, and my eyes kind of get bigger than my stomach. We wanted to have a small lunch, smallish, and I look around and they have these pizzas here, and they had a calzone, or it was like a calzone. I wanted to get one, but the pizza was calling my name, and I said, "Man, that looks good." So I was asking the guys behind the counter what these things are, and I think one of them was like a Philly cheesesteak pizza or something like that. It was pretty good, and and then the other one that I got was this sweet Munster, Munster? I don't know how you say that. Anyway, this with Jersey Long Hots on it, and that was very good too. And as I stood there and talked to these two guys, and I said something that was kind of telling that I wasn't from there, and they said, "Oh yeah, where are you from?" And I said, "I'm from Kansas City." And they said, "Oh, okay." And I said, "You know, I had New York pizza. I'm kind of interested in seeing what New Jersey pizza's like." And the guy behind the counter, who was obviously the owner, he said, "Jersey pizza, this isn't Jersey pizza. This is specialty pizza." He said, "We take this to the farmers market, and that stuff this is stuff that we take special to the farmers market that got rained out today. So you guys are getting a chance to have this." And he said, "But that's not real New Jersey pizza." And I said, "Oh, really?" And he said, "I assure you it's good." I said, No, I know it's good. I'm kind of trying to take in the culture." And he said, "Oh, okay. Well, here, it's on the house." And he gives me a slice of New Jersey pizza, and or what he deemed New Jersey pizza. It was all very good. What it was marinara, mozzarella, and fresh basil, and I loved that. I loved all three of these pizzas. Now, I wanted to have a light lunch, maybe something about yay big, nothing huge. So instead, I had 2 pieces of pizza about that big and 1 pizza about that big. So I was one full dude. And my wife, having ordered independently of me, didn't realize that I was getting this giant amount of food, and she ordered a giant sandwich for herself, and then these cheese fries for us to share. So essentially, we shared some, finished off the pizza, took part of the sandwich home. Anyway, whatever, that's irrelevant. But the guys there were so nice, and at some point, the guy that gave me the free slice, he said, "Hey, how you like it?" And I said, It's very, very good. I said, I do like this pizza more than the pizza I had in New York. I said, granted for this video, I will make it expressly clear that I only visited 1 pizza place in New York and 1 pizza place in New Jersey, so there's no way that I can have a good cross-section to find out which cities I prefer, but over the place in New York City, I enjoyed this place in Atlantic City quite a lot. And he said, "Yep, I know, New Jersey pizza's better." I got a kick out of that, but it was extremely good. It was very tasty, and so I highly recommend Tony Baloney's for people who are going to Atlantic City, or for people who live nearby Atlantic City. You can go to Atlantic City, try Tony Baloney's. It's reasonably priced and it's really good. So let's see here. What else did we do? So we left Tony Baloney's, and we went in search of UPS, because we had these we had stuff from IKEA that we couldn't take back with us on the plane. So we went in search of UPS, and apparently, just a tip for anybody going to Atlantic City that's looking for UPS, it's not in the Regents, regardless of what Google Maps says, and it's not in the middle of nowhere, regardless of what Google Maps says. It's in the Taj Mahal. So go to the Taj Mahal, and you can ship stuff at their UPS store. So we went to the Taj Mahal, and my fiance my wife. Wow, I can't believe I just did that. My wife said she was looking at all the decorations, and much like we did at Caesars, and she said, "You know, this might be even too gaudy for me," which is, a little self-deprecating humor. She likes things that are extremely ornate, and there was lots of little pieces to all the chandeliers, and they're so big, and there's so many of them, and the Taj Mahal's a little too much. It's a little too quirky for its own good. But and Caesars, I would count among that. They have like gladiators walking around, but that's not to say that they're not lovely, interesting places. It's just whatever. I said my piece. Moving on. So so at the Taj Mahal, we again wasted $3. We started playing. She wanted to play one, and she said, "Here, let's play one more." And I said, "All right, let's play one more." And I don't even remember what it was, but she plugged in, and we played, and we lost $3. So we've lost a grand total of $5. Woo boy! At the casinos now. So later on that day, we essentially went back and crashed for a little while. Went back and had a peaceful afternoon, and then we thought, well, we need to go get dinner. So I wanted to have my big fish dinner. And so I went, or she and I went to the Doc's Oyster Bar, which is supposed to be like the best place in Atlantic City, and it was going to be 2 hours wait. Ridiculous. And I said, man, I don't want to wait that long. And I'm like, it'll be almost closing time by the time they let us in. So we decide to look for another place, and we find this place. It's a chain restaurant, but still it's on the coast, so they have access to better ingredients, I guess, or more or fresher fish. So I thought, what's the matter? Let's go to a chain restaurant. So I call this place. It's in Harrah's Casino, and it's called McCormick and Schmick's. And we go into McCormick and Schmick. I give them a call on the way there, and I ask them what their availability is, and they said, we don't have any. And I said, no joke? Really? Okay. I said, no kidding. And I said, when can you guys have us in? I said, that's what I wanted. Oh, they said, oh, you want to make a reservation? I said, well, yeah, but if you have time tonight, it seems weird to call it a reservation if I'm calling and then driving there. But, so, I mean, I guess that's what it is. It just seemed weird in my head. I couldn't pull that word out of the aether for that occasion. But so I made a reservation for 8:45. Got there at 8:30, and they immediately seated us. I called at 8:15, which was amazing to me that they said they didn't have any availability, but then we get there and it's clear. So, we had a really nice dinner. The waitress was extremely friendly and very polite and very joking and talkative and interesting. And I had Parmesan encrusted flounder, and my wife had Parmesan encrusted chicken. So they came with different sides. I thought it was really funny. And they were both really good. What's interesting is I enjoyed the chicken a little bit more than the flounder because we let each other try it. The fish flavor was not as strong as I kind of hoped it would be. Flounder is apparently a really mild fish, and it's not something that tends to stand out. In fact, the dominant flavor was the oil they used, and that surprised me a little bit. I kind of wanted it to be a little stronger. I don't know. So it was okay though. I enjoyed it. And I had this drink called the Millionaire Coffee, and it was fantastic. It had like Frangelico and Kahlua, coffee. It had a couple other things that are completely slipping my mind. I think Bailey's Irish Cream, and then there was one more, something that's an outlier. I forget what it is. Anyway, it was very tasty. I highly recommend that. But for those of you who are over 21, or 21, whichever. So we venture into Harrah's after dinner, and we walk by this little string of Spider-Man slot machines, and my wife says, Vince, you have to play this. And I said, yeah. I said, I don't know. I said, we've already lost $5. Now I know it's only $5, but you know, I was like, just for lines that kind of link up and then a sign to come up and say you're out of money, or to say you're almost out of money, I thought it was silly. I didn't see the point in it. So I go up to the Spider-Man thing, and I sit down at it, and I put my money in, and then this sign comes up that says it's an electronic screen. So it's for those of you who've never been to a casino. It's not just ka-chink, flap, 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 flap. A lot of these things are completely electric, and it's like a video game with less involvement. But so I sit down at this thing, and then this little sign pops up on the screen that says, pick the level of chair movement that you want, and it explained to me why the chair moved. So I picked the medium. I didn't want to make a scene, but I didn't want to feel nothing. So, because it gave you low, medium, and high. So I make my bet. It only gave you the option of, I think, 40 lines. It was a 5-cent slot machine, and I put in $1. So I made my bet, and then the Green Goblin comes flying across, and it's based on Raimi's movie, so it's that Green Goblin who I don't know if they used Willem Dafoe's voice, but it sounded a lot like Willem Dafoe, and the person voicing Spider-Man sounded nothing like Tobey Maguire, so that was funny to me. But so essentially, the chair would kick back and forth as the Green Goblin would launch these bombs at you, and you would get points for every time Spider-Man caught the bombs with his webbing and threw them back at the Green Goblin, and they exploded. So the chair would move as Spider-Man dodges and move as Spider-Man launches these things back, and that was really entertaining. I don't know. I thought it was kind of fun and interesting, and so I'm derailing. What am I talking about? Spider-Man. So that all ends, and what's funny is they give you 3 different sections where you can choose how much the bombs that make contact, how much those things are worth. So the first time I chose the lowest one, not intentionally, it's all random. The first time I chose the lowest of the 3. The second 2 times I chose the highest of the 3, and that was pleasing. So so I get to and I play it a couple more times. I kind of had like a kiddie reaction. I was like, yeah, again. And it's like, I'm only losing $1. Who cares? And so it's pretty, but it did all it was just choosing lines the second 2 times I played, and I was, oh man, I kind of wanted to see more Spider-Man villains. I wanted to see more things happen. And I said, oh, I guess it doesn't do it I guess it doesn't do it every time. And the guy sitting next to me, he just laughed. So I wonder how long he'd been sitting there waiting for that to happen. Or I wonder if it only happens the first time. Who knows? So I cash out, and I think, well, I didn't lose my $1. I thought I made $2, so I cashed out and I won 20. So I lost 5 at 2 other casinos, won 20 at Harrah's, which was neat. So at Harrah's, we walked around, and it's a really pretty place. I guess Harrah's is one of the newer casinos out there, and it was pretty classy. Apparently, the place to hang out in Kansas City in Atlantic City. The place to hang out in Atlantic City is in Harrah's, and it's called The Pool. And when my wife and I found out about The Pool, we both kind of looked at each other and said, that sounds like a cesspool. the idea that because apparently there's like some odd thousand people that go to this thing. And there's loads of people. I don't know how many people, but apparently this place is packed. So on a Wednesday night, this place is packed. So I don't know why Wednesday. It seems like an arbitrary choice of day of the week, but it's packed apparently. So we looked into the pool and we went, oh, because we thought it was a giant pool with probably some bars in there. And the idea that you're in a pool with a bunch of drunk people doesn't necessarily give me any faith that it's clean. So while we're at that place, it's really classy. Like there's a couple different levels, and there's places around, and there's a pool that's in the middle. So it's not a giant pool. So calling it the pool is not exactly inaccurate, or is not exactly accurate. I mean, it's not exactly inaccurate because there is a pool in there, but to call it the pool is to kind of undersell what it is. So we looked around. We didn't go inside. We didn't care to go inside, really. We just kind of thought, let's go home. Or let's go back to the rental. So we walk around Harrah's a little bit, and it was fun. And essentially, that was the end of the evening. We went back to the rental. So the next day we get up and we're about to leave, but we decide to have lunch before we leave. And we go to this little place that my wife's aunt recommended, and it was good. It wasn't bad, but it was kind of a weird experience. And at this moment, I think it kind of solidified in my head that now there's alpha male types everywhere. That is something that exists in society, regardless of what town you live in. But I kind of felt like in Atlantic City, you saw groups of normal people, and then you saw groups of alpha males, like one group out of maybe 10 or 15, you would see these like groups of these big alpha males. Hey, how you doing? Hey. And not to insult anybody in New Jersey, I mean, people, it was interesting to me to see people out in the town having a good time, these alpha male types, and essentially people that are kind of, boom, strong personalities. And that's interesting to me. I found it interesting. Not a problem, not necessarily something that was bad, but I found it interesting. But I did have conflict with one of these guys. So we went to a restaurant, and the owner walked by, and he was pretty obviously the owner. He wasn't really doing anything. He was kind of surveying. But he had the shirt on. He looked like he worked there. So my wife and I walk in. There's no wait to be seated sign. There's no essentially there's no sign that tells us what to do. So we walk in there and we thought, well, when there's a place like that, it's a little diner. You find a place to sit down. The person comes over who's going to serve you. So we walk in, we look around, we're kind of standing there for a bit, and then we sit down. Nobody talks to us. Or because nobody talked to us, we sat down. So the owner walks by, and I said to this guy, I said, "Hi," I said, "Excuse me, what do you recommend? What do you think's really good that I should give a shot?" And he said, "That over there, that is the specials, okay, right there on the wall." And then he walks away. And I said, "Well, this is odd. I'm not sure why I offended you, but." So every so often I would look up and that guy would be giving me the stink eye. He'd be, "That's weird. I'm not sure what's going on here." So I noticed my body language was like this, trying to, kind of blend into my surroundings. And then I thought, well, I wonder what happens if I try to exude more confidence. I wonder what happens if I take this posture. And the guy's tone changed. So it's interesting to me, like apparently with these alpha male types, these big strong personalities, that strength respects strength. So his tone changed, and he walks over and says, so how do you like it?" Well, actually, before that, he's like, "You still confused?" And I said, "No. I understood that those were the specials and that this was the menu, and I just kind of wanted a recommendation." And so then I changed my posture, and he comes over and he says, "Hey, how is it?" I said, "Oh, it's very good. Thank you. Appreciate it. It's very tasty." And he comes over with this kid, with his hand on this kid's shoulder, and he says, "Hey, I'm going to sit this guy next to you. He's a good kid. He's family." Which, okay, it's like, it doesn't matter who he is. I mean, he could bite the heads off of chickens for all I care. If he wanted to sit next to us, it's your place. Set him next to us by all means. I didn't say that to him. What I said was, "All right, cool. Have a seat, bud." And so this kid, and incidentally, he was a very nice kid, and he was family to that man. He was the owner's nephew, and he was a very, very nice guy. We had a chat with him. He goes to NYU. He was studying cooking, and I kind of tried to guess what he was studying. We had a very nice conversation. Very polite guy. So I thought it was interesting that those two were related, and it's interesting to me how New Jersey has such big personalities, or at least Atlantic City does. And I found that interesting. I'm not trying to judge anybody. I'm just saying that at this particular restaurant, this guy was kind of, kind of a jerk. And when I made myself look more confident by taking up more space, by trying to look physically bigger, he showed me more respect. He came over, asked us how our meal was. he spoke to us with more respect, and I thought that was really interesting. Now, my overall assessment, because I don't want to leave on a sour note, my overall assessment of New Jersey was that it's lovely. Really, it's a pretty nice place, and Atlantic City is short or not. Taking into consideration that there was damage due to a hurricane, it's a very pretty place, and it has lots of interesting stuff there, and and the people there were extremely friendly, at least to my wife and I, except for that one guy, and even the alpha male types were largely friendly. They were just kind of. It was interesting to me that I saw groups of caricatures walking around. Again, that's not necessarily the average New Jersey person. I must make that expressly clear. I just thought it was funny. Anyway, moving on. Guys, that's the end of Atlantic City. Well, that's not the end of Atlantic City. That's the end of this video about Atlantic City. So, guys, tune in next time and hear a little bit about Washington, D.C., because we took a day trip and I really enjoyed it. So, just so you know, no, I did not visit a comic book store in Atlantic City because there's not one, which saddened me a little bit because there was in the other 3 cities we went to. But oh well, we had a good time nonetheless. So overall, I recommend Atlantic City. It's relaxing. It's a lot of fun, and there's a lot of stuff available, and there's people there. A lot of the people there are really nice. So we had a really good time, and Atlantic City was my wife's favorite was my wife's favorite time visiting all 4 of these cities. But we found lots of people who were extremely nice at all 4 cities, and I guess that's the end of it. I guess we're just going into DC next time. So tune in next time for DC on Fist Forces.